Time for tonight's rewrite. Tax justice will have its day in the United States Senate, possibly as early as tomorrow. Majority Leader Harry Reid will try to bring President Obama's American Jobs Act to a vote in the Senate after having rewritten the tax provisions in the bill that pay for it. The bill should now be called the American Jobs and Tax Justice Act, because what Harry Reid has written into the bill is a more progressive and more fairly targeted tax proposal than what the White House had proposed to pay for the bill, where the president offered a small collection of tax proposals aimed at some corporations and individuals with incomes over $200,000. Harry Reid narrowed the focus to one tax proposal for people with net taxable incomes over $1 million. The Reid proposal adds a 5.6% surtax on all income above $1 million, including, and this is very important, it includes capital gains income, which is taxed at a much lower rate than ordinary income. It is a sensible and practical attempt to close the gap between the low capital gains tax rates billionaires pay and the higher income tax rates that working middle-class families pay. Now, let's just think about how much money this is. If you make $1 million, nothing happens to your taxes. If you make $1,100,000, it means that on that $100,000 above $1 million, you will pay an additional $5,600 in federal income tax. So a person making $1 million a year, nothing, no change. Don't have to pay anything more. But a person making $1.1 million a year would pay an additional $5,600 in federal income tax. A person making $2 million a year would pay an additional $56,000 in federal income tax, only on that second $1 million of income. The first $1 million of income would still be taxed exactly as it is today at 35%. If you were making $1 million and you had a chance to make another $1 million, but on that second $1 million you knew you'd have to pay $56,000 of it in additional federal taxes, do you think you'd say, nah, I'll just hold it right here at $1 million? No one would make that choice. No one has ever made that choice. The brilliance of this surtax is that it goes where the money is. Plenty of money, a wild excess of money that is capable of absorbing this very, very small additional tax responsibility without anyone who earns that kind of money ever noticing that they're sending in a little bit more to the federal government. 5.6% more only on incomes over $1 million. And that is all we need to pay for President Obama's entire American Jobs Act. 89 days ago, the Senate took its first important step toward tax justice on a sense of the Senate resolution. Sense of the Senate resolutions are not law. Most of them are not controversial. A lot of them pass unanimously. Many of them just sound like Hallmark greeting cards in legislative language. Like this one from January 11th. It is the sense of the Senate that the people of the United States should observe and celebrate the 150th anniversary of the admittance of the state of Kansas to the United States as the 34th state. Typical sense of the Senate resolution. But the sense of the Senate resolution that Harry Reid introduced 89 days ago turned out to be sharply partisan. It was written by Majority Leader Reid and contained this preamble. Congress makes the following findings. The Wall Street Journal reports that median pay for chief financial officers of S&P 500 companies increased 19% to $2.9 million last year. Over the past 10 years, the median family income has declined by more than $2,500. 20% of all income earned in the United States is earned by the top 1% of individuals. Over the past quarter century, 4/5 of the income gains accrued to the top 1% of individuals. Then Senator Reid got to the point. It is the sense of the Senate that any agreement to reduce the budget deficit should require that those earning $1 million or more per year make a more meaningful contribution to the deficit reduction effort. Now, I wish we lived in a world where we could be surprised that every Republican in the Senate voted against that resolution. But we all know better by now. We know that most Republicans in the Senate and the House took an oath to Grover Norquist before they took their oath of office. Their signed oath to a Republican lobbyist, Grover Norquist, is that they will never raise taxes in any way on anyone at any time, under any circumstances, not ever, including taxes on millionaires, taxes on billionaires. And so, yes, every Republican in the Senate voted against Harry Reid's July resolution, which he properly entitled Sense of the Senate of Shared Sacrifice. Senator Reid got all Republicans in the Senate on record as being opposed to collecting any more revenue in any way from the richest among us, who earn more than $1 million a year. Senate Republicans put themselves on record as being against closing any kind of tax loophole that benefits the super rich or raising their income taxes even by $1. Just by $1. That was the genius of Harry Reid's resolution. It didn't specify how much more we should ask of the people making $1 million, making more than $1 million. Just that it should be more. $100? $10? $1,000? $5? It didn't say. The resolution didn't say that. Just more. And Republicans voted against the very concept of even having people making over $1 million pay just $1 more, anything more. Senator Reid got 51 Democratic votes in favor of his shared sacrifice resolution. You couldn't ask for a clearer difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. You couldn't ask for a clearer reason to vote Democratic. Or if you think the richest income earners in this country shouldn't be asked to contribute one more nickel to this country, then yes, you could not ask for a clearer reason to vote Republican. When anyone tries to tell you there's not much difference between the two parties, when anyone tries to tell you there's some sort of protect the rich conspiracy going on in Washington run by the Republican Party, some ugly governing force that controls both parties, point to this vote. Point to July 13th, 2011, in the United States Senate. 51 Democrats saying that those earning more than $1 million per year should make a more meaningful contribution, and every Republican voting against that. No difference between the parties? There's $1 million difference between the parties right there. We'll see that difference again this week. Most Democrats will vote for tax justice, and every Republican will vote against it.